Hey, Happy New Year, everybody. Uh, I have a harmonica lesson for you today. It is January 1st, 2024. Hoping we have a good year. I'm starting the lesson with the saxophone, even though it is a harmonica lesson. But the reason I'm playing the saxophone here is because I want to talk about something that I don't know how to do yet. I have my goals. I have my musical development goals for this year, that's for sure. I'm very hungry to grow as a musician on all my instruments and as a composer and an arranger. But let's talk about the diminished scale. The diminished scale, I heard Toots Thielemans, the great jazz harmonica player Toots Thielemans, in an interview, he said that the diminished scale was very important to him as an improviser. And as a improvising jazz saxophone player, I understand the importance of the diminished scale. I'm going to play a C, this is C concert diminished scale on the saxophone. So you could tell I have some facility and confidence. I could really do it without thinking. That's not the way it is on the harmonica, at least right now. So I thought I'd be frank today and just show you something that I'm not very good at on the harmonica, and maybe you can join me as I work on learning this. The value of the diminished scale as an improviser is to you've heard of the 2-5-1 progression. On the 5 chord of the 2-5-1 progression, if you play a diminished scale starting on the half step, because what a diminished scale is, it's a very symmetrical scale. It's a whole step followed by a half step, followed by a whole step, followed by a half step, and so on. It just goes back and forth, whole step, half step. And major scales and other diatonic scales don't work like that. You'll like a major scale, you'll have 2 whole steps, then a half step, and so on. So the diminished scale. But on a 2-5-1 progression, if I'm in the key of G, that's just a Dorian kind of thing on the 2 chord. But then on the 5 chord, landing on the 1. So once again, it's wonderful for the 5 chord, and especially if you really fly playing it, especially if you play it with a great degree of fluidity. It sounds great, and you tend to land on the note that you want to as the chords change. The diminished scale is super cool. I'm just kind of like, why have I not been working on it on the harmonica? It seems to me about 5 years ago I was working on it, and I could play it with some degree of facility, but it wasn't something that I continued with. So anyway, let me put the saxophone away. Isn't this interesting? It's a saxophone mute. You can't mute a saxophone like you mute a trumpet. Trumpet, you could just cover the bell with something. The saxophone, the sounds come out from the keywork. So this is a big plastic box, basically, filled with foam. And it's got holes for your hands. Anyway. There's a C diminished scale, and I've got a standard tune C chromatic harmonica, 12-hole harmonica here. Let me tell you my strategy for getting myself started on the diminished scale on the harmonica. I've got to ask myself a series of questions. The first question is, can I play a minor third interval off of any of the 12 chromatic tones on the harmonica? Second question, can I play the first 3 degrees of a minor scale? off of any chromatic tone on the chromatic harmonica. If you've been working on scales in all keys, then you probably are able to do this. If you've been working on minor scales, you'll be able to do this. The first 3 degrees of the minor scale. If you've been working on arpeggios, you'll have some concept of playing the minor third off of any of the chromatic tones. We're not going to do all the chromatic tones today. We're just going to do 4. So let's start with the minor third interval at the bottom of the harmonica. We're going to play C to E flat. So that's the minor third interval. Now play the minor third off of the E flat, off the second note. That would be E flat to F sharp. 2 draw notes, leave the slide in. So once again, C to E flat, and then E flat to F sharp. And then we continue that pattern. Can we play a minor third off the F sharp? That's going to be F sharp to A. Can you play an A to a C? That's the next minor third interval. So there you have the 4 degrees of, or we could call it the diminished 7th chord arpeggio. That's the 4 tones. And we could put the C on top. Okay, so the next question is, can you play the first 3 degrees of the minor scale? And I'm not going to say in all 12 keys. Can you play the first 3 notes of the minor scale in these 4 keys? C, E flat, F sharp, and A. So let's start with the C. Here's, it's just 3 notes. Then start that same thing on the E flat, the first 3 notes of the E flat minor scale. That leads us to F sharp. Can you play the first 3 notes of the F sharp minor scale? Now we've landed on A. Play the first 3 notes of the A minor scale. So, no exaggeration or fictitious stories here. This is how I work on my diminished scale. I do this kind of start-stop thing on each of the degrees. So I will literally play. Now, you could keep going up. I'm losing my place. So I've got a lot of work to do. Can I play this at a reasonable tempo over a 2-octave range without making any mistakes? No. I would attempt to do this and I would mess up on the camera. And so, once again, I'm jumping off of my soapbox as a teacher, and I'm joining you as a fellow student of this crazy instrument. But it would be extremely valuable if I could fly up and down. I got to tell you something about the diminished scale is the thing that we just did. Of course, the next step is to not stop, not do those little stopping points, but to play it all as a scale and to memorize that sequence of notes and how it feels, and then to start playing it up and down the harmonica. But the cool thing about this is you put the work into this and you've learned essentially the diminished scale. you've learned 4 diminished scales because of the symmetrical nature of the scale. You have learned this, the C diminished scale, the E flat diminished scale, the F sharp diminished scale, and the A diminished scale. So you only need to learn this pattern in 3 keys to get all 12 keys. I don't know if that makes sense, but when we go, if we started on D, if you learn that D one, you've learned the D diminished scale, the F diminished scale, the A flat diminished scale, and the B diminished scale. So, I don't know why it's such a challenge for me, but I commit to working on this, and I invite you to join me. All kinds of patterns you can do with the diminished scale. It's pretty amazing.